In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was a moment in history. Our Savior came to seek the will of God before he could pursue it. 3 men were chosen to come along, but they slept right through it. An inner battle was fought and won, and we all get to share in the victory. But there was so much more in that garden, to that moment in history. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was waiting, a place of peaceful solitude where, among the olive trees, fighting this inner battle, entered our Creator. While his disciples slept, Jesus was waiting, tormented with grief and agony. He waited for his traitor. Jesus waited to hear from God, to receive an answer for what lay ahead, assurance that what came next was the Father's will. All the while he waited, he knew what was coming: dreaded torture, long suffering, and the cross he would carry up Calvary's hill. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was sorrow. Jesus said, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." Then he fell with his face to the ground and prayed. Jesus wanted the cup to pass from him. This was Jesus in his humanity. He was grieved, he was worried, and he was afraid. Jesus knew his sacrifice was meant to absorb the wrath of God lashed upon him for the sins of all mankind. His death would be no ordinary crucifixion. Luke said his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. Jesus didn't just feel sorrow, he was in misery over his affliction. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was disappointment. Jesus asked 3 of his closest disciples to watch and pray, but each time he returned to them from prayer, he found them asleep. He had told them, "Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Like Jesus, sometimes we have expectations for those closest to us when we are in need, when we are in pain, that they can't meet and they let us down. When we come to them expecting to find them in prayer, to see them sharing in our suffering, we find them asleep, or worse, nowhere to be found. Jesus didn't get the encouragement or strength he needed from the brothers he called to watch and pray. He gained it from his Father through his own prayer, by seeking his will and having the willingness to obey. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was prayer. Not a beautiful, poetic kind of prayer, but one that was real. It was human. It was an emotional plea in anguish. "Father, remove this cup from me." Jesus wanted to obey the will of his Father, even if it meant drinking the cup, but there was still a longing to let it pass from him and be free. Jesus never faltered. "Nonetheless, your will, not mine, be done." The words that saved us all, spoken to the Father from the Son. Surrendering to the will of God is not easy, but he will provide what is needed for you to follow, even sending strength on the wings of an angel to take a drink from a cup you don't want to swallow. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was a mirror. We see a reflection of another garden and of another man. This man fell before the enemy, while the other took a stand. This man was weak in his temptation. He fell victim to manipulation and discovered sin, while the other never even knew it. This man earned and was forced to endure his punishment and separation from God, while the other chose to go through it. This man was in the garden hiding from God in his shame and regret, while the other with humble obedience went there to find him. This man didn't know beforehand what his actions would bring, while the other lived every day with the knowledge to remind him. Adam let in the sin that would enslave us. Jesus conquered it all so he could save us. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was transformation. An angel appeared before Jesus, strengthening him, and he returned from his prayer with a bold determination. There was no more time for grieving, no more time for sorrow, no more time for desperate prayer and isolation. Christ found resolution in the garden. Now certain of his Father's will, he was prepared to pick up his cross. For our sake he made him to be sin, who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Jesus knew the time had come. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. Jesus willingly gave himself up out of his love for us, just as God had planned. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was betrayal. A betrayal that would come on the lips of a friend, ignorant to who Jesus really was, despite being a follower and a witness. Judas lacked faith, had selfish motives, had no deep relationship with Christ, and was involved in the enemy's business. And yet Christ loved him. With all his flaws, he loved him despite the treachery that from the beginning Jesus could foresee. Jesus loved a man who lied to him, betrayed him, who was weak and disappointing. To look at Judas is to look at you and me. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was love. Jesus entered the garden with a love for his Father and a love for the mankind he came to know and knew he had to save. A love so deep that he would do whatever the Father asked of him, even to lay down his life if there was no other way. Jesus knew what the next day was going to bring for him. He knew that he was headed to the cross. He knew how lost the world was, how broken, how in need of a Savior, and he had to pay the cost. What love! To endure such pain, unimaginable suffering, separation from the Father, and all to save us from our sin. Did he think of me as they placed the crown on his head? Did he think of you when that first nail broke his skin? In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was a moment in history, a moment that should seize us. In the Garden of Gethsemane, there was Jesus.